The novel Vanessa and Virginia came directly out of my work on the Cambridge Virginia Woolf edition. I read or reread not only everything Virginia Woolf wrote, but also a great deal by her contemporaries, including her artist sister Vanessa Bell. The more I read, the more questions I found I had, questions that the available historical materials couldn't supply answers to. Most of those questions were to do with the close, loving, but also rivalrous relationship that existed between Virginia Woolf and Vanessa Bell, and fiction seemed an arena in which it was possible to explore those questions ethically. I've loved Virginia Woolf's prose ever since I was a teenager, and her extraordinary agility with words and the poetry of her language were definite sources of inspiration. At the same time, I was terrified I might produce a poor pastiche of her work, so I decided to tell the novel from the point of view of her sister Vanessa, who's not left behind her anything like the volume of words Woolf has. Contemporaries frequently refer to Vanessa as the silent sister, and this silence, this absence of information, felt more enabling to me as a creative writer. One of the strange paradoxes of writing Vanessa and Virginia was that there were a number of points where it was difficult to make the true course of events convincing in a work of fiction. An example of this is the death of Vanessa and Virginia's half-sister Stella in 1897, just a year and a half after their mother's tragic death. If I'd been writing a factual account, I would simply have treated the devastating effect of the death of their mother, Julia Stephen, on the two sisters, and then gone on to treat the death of their beloved half-sister Stella. But for fiction, this felt like overload. I couldn't find a way of making these two tragic events coming one after another work. It felt strained and implausible. So I decided to begin the novel with Vanessa thinking back over her relationship with Virginia. This meant that I could use Vanessa's memories to structure the narrative, and so wasn't obliged to present events chronologically. It also meant I could be selective, and had the added advantage that memory frequently jumbles and embroiders what happens, and that helped to distance my fiction from any actual historical fact. This is the opening passage from the novel. I'm lying on my back on the grass. Toby's lying next to me, his warm flank pressing into my side. My eyes are open and I'm watching the clouds, tracing giants, castles, fabulous winged beasts as they chase each other across the sky. Something light tickles my cheek. I raise myself onto my elbow and catch hold of the grass stalk in Toby's hand. He jerks away from me, and soon we're pummeling and giggling until I scarcely know which of the tumbling legs and arms are Toby's and which are mine. When we stop at last, Toby's face is on my chest. I feel the weight of his head against my ribs. His hair is golden in the sunlight, and as I look up, I see the blazing whiteness of an angel. I loop my arm round Toby's neck. For the first time in my life, I know what bliss means. A shadow falls. My angel disappears. I recognise your snake-green eyes. You want to lie between us, and when I push you away, you jump up and whisper in Toby's ear. He lifts his head and looks at you. I see from his expression that your words have captured him. I know that you will lure him away with one of your daredevil plans. I roll over and press my face into the grass. The blades prickle my eyelids, and I concentrate on the sharpness. When I turn round again, the two of you have gone. I lay back on the grass, feigning indifference. Not for the world will I let you see my tears. Vanessa Bell was a highly talented artist, and to inhabit her, I had to try to imagine what it would be like to have a primarily visual relationship to the world. Vanessa Bell was one of only a handful of students to be selected for the painting school of the Royal Academy in London in 1901, where she was taught by John Singer Sargent and also came under the influence of Whistler. Her colour sense was so sharp that she was able to hold a shade in her head and come back to it weeks later with perfect accuracy. To help with this aspect of Vanessa, I spent time watching painters at work, and I became fascinated by the way a painting is built up, brushstroke by brushstroke. Paintings are used in the novel to structure Vanessa's narrative, and the process of painting itself became an important source of metaphor. I also enjoyed the rich palette of language that writing about the world from a visual point of view gave me. The gradual brushstroke by brushstroke compilation of a painting is echoed in the novel's form, which is a series of vignettes. I think this in turn enabled me to write about the sisters creatively, because it's a form that leaves the reader free to draw their own conclusions. Vanessa Bell's paintings were incredibly important in the writing of Vanessa and Virginia, and this passage comes after the death of Vanessa and Virginia's father, Leslie Stephen, when the pair were at last able to move out of the rather gloomy family home in Hyde Park Gate to their own house in Bloomsbury. A wall of orange ablaze in the sun, the glow of hot coals. My colours have the sheen of silk, the rough textures of Hessian. In the top right-hand corner of my painting is a pale pink square edged in blue. The clash between the pink and orange is violent, compelling, gorgeous. I mute it by adding a daub of white to the pink, but only slightly. I do not want to diminish the effect. On the left of my canvas, I paint a series of rectangles. Some interconnect, some stand alone. I paint two of them blue, one a potent aquamarine, the other paler and tempered with the same hint of whiteness as the pink. I'm careless with the outlines. I've had too many years of cloying detail. What interests me is the impact of colours. In the centre of my picture, I paint a single rectangle. It is a rich crimson red with traces of darker vermilion. It dazzles and sizzles against the orange. I revel in its daring. I turn my attention to the two remaining bars. I paint one green, a blue sage, slightly chalky. For the other, I choose a strong burgundy. I'm fascinated by the way the different reds shun and call to each other. Sometimes, when I stand back from my canvas, I can see nothing else. The way the orange recedes against their impact astonishes me. I cannot believe the past has already lost its power. I turn my attention to my central rectangle. I am audacious. I will create the spaces I need. I will be mistress in my own house.